Israel Adesanya has been the UFC middleweight champion for quite some time now, and with an impressive set of skills coupled with a lifelong love for anime, there's no doubt that Adesanya has the motivation to stay on top. But according to Henry Cejudo, this might not be for long. So, who's the man aiming to take the last stylebender down? And which other headlines should we be aware of? For this and more, stay tuned. First of all, let's take a look at the damning statements made by Henry Cejudo. For those of you who don't know, Henry Cejudo is a former professional mixed martial artist and wrestler who often commentates and gives his opinion on what's happening in the league. And according to him, Israel Adesanya's unbelievable run at the top of the UFC middleweight division may be coming to an end sooner than we think. The last stylebender faced off against Robert Whittaker a few days ago at UFC 271 and had no trouble defending his title for a fourth time. In fact, if you look at the competition he's already taken down, there aren't many fighters Adesanya has yet to defeat. Whittaker himself has been taken out twice by the anime enthusiast. But this hasn't stopped Cejudo from seeing the downfall of Adesanya in the future. You see, despite the last stylebender's successful defense, Whittaker was actually able to land around 4 takedowns against the champion, showing that there's most definitely space for a new fighter to take his place. Cejudo has even claimed that he knows who the new champion will be, and it's none other than Khamzat Chimaev of Chechnya, Russia. Boris, as he most recently has been called, has a current record of 4 unbeaten wins in the UFC, which is backed up by a streak of 10 unbeaten wins in the sport in general. While speaking on the Triple C and Schmo show, Cejudo referred to Chimaev as a whole other animal who has that Khabib Nurmagomedov control. But does Cejudo have any evidence to back up this statement of his? Well, with only 4 UFC fights in the pocket, it's quite hard to say. There's no doubt that Khamzat Chimaev has some impressive skills in the octagon, but we're not sure how long this unbeaten streak of his is going to last. In the end, it's the fighter's confidence that really sets him apart from the other contenders in the UFC middleweight division though. Despite being a new name in the league, he truly believes that he can take just about anyone down. And since the other fighters in Adesanya's division have had the fear of God knocked into them by the last stylebender, this confidence is something they lack. So maybe that's exactly what Chimaev needs to knock the defending champion off his pedestal. He's also a fantastic wrestler, with the best point of attack against Adesanya being a ground and pound style that will lock up his fast move set. According to Cejudo, it's also the training regimen of Chimaev that is set to secure him in the spot at the top of the division. When asked about the future of the Russian fighter, he responded by saying that he literally trains like nobody has ever seen before. And since it's that sort of motivation which defines championship runs, Cejudo has no problem putting all of his eggs in one basket. In his own words, I can see him easily beating Israel Adesanya. But whether there's any truth to this statement, we'll have to see. Kyle Sonnen has also had a lot to say about the future of Israel Adesanya. According to him, the defending champion has started to fight contenders who aren't exactly doing their job. And for that reason, Adesanya needs someone like Colby Covington to move into the middleweight division so that he can actually keep himself on a swivel. Champions begin to fade away when they're left unchallenged for too long, after all. And if the fight promoter is to be trusted, it's only Covington who can step up and stop this from happening. For those of you who haven't been paying attention, Covington has been making waves since he put up a dominant performance against Jorge Masvidal at UFC 272, which undoubtedly secured his spot at the top of the UFC welterweight contenders list. The only problem is that Kamaru Usman currently stands tall as the champion of the division. And since Covington has already lost 2 bouts to the man, his dream to top the charts may very well be impossible to achieve. We also know that Dustin Poirier has shown a disinterest in any match against Covington, which leaves the fighter with nowhere to go. At least that's the case if he stays where he is. But if he decides to move up into the middleweight division, an entirely new world will be opened up to him, with the title held by Israel Adesanya being ripe for the picking. Suffice to say, Sonnen is correct by stating that this would be the right move for Covington to make. What are the chances of Covington altering his division path, though? Once again, this can be quite difficult to establish since Covington has spent the majority of his career in the welterweight division. And since he's now so close to the top, it might feel like a giant waste of time to move divisions and aim for another championship. In other words, he may decide that it's actually Kamaru Usman who needs to prepare for a rather intensive fight. But as we said earlier, Covington has already lost twice to the defending champion, with a third fight looking to be settled in very much the same way. This means that he may never be champion if he stays in his current division, which could very well motivate him to move up a level. We know that he wants to hold a championship belt in his hands after all. He's called out Kamaru Usman, Israel Adesanya, and Dustin Poirier after all. And if there's one thing these challengers have in common, it's the fact that they have championship belts hanging up in their mantles at home. Covington has even said that that he's willing to shift divisions if the UFC decides to give him the status of #1 contender to the championship. It's a hard sell to make, but Sonen's right by saying that Adesanya would be smart to accept this type of deal. For some or other reason, the contenders he's fighting aren't bringing attention to him anymore, so he needs someone like Covington to do that job. In other UFC news, Terrence McKinney has finally suffered his first loss. It all happened a few days ago when McKinney stepped into the octagon to take on fellow competitor Drew Dober. And for a while, it felt like McKinney was going to walk away with another first-round win, solidifying him as one of the fastest fighters in the league. Unfortunately for him, though, Dober survived some hairy moments and came back with a vengeance, turning the tide against McKinney and walking away with the victory. It's important to note that McKinney was never actually meant to fight against Dober in the first place, with the fighter actually stepping into the bout on short notice after an injured Ricky Glenn was forced to withdraw from the event a couple of days earlier. But McKinney wasn't afraid of what Dober had to offer. In fact, he saw this bout as the perfect opportunity to improve his unbeaten record of 3 wins and capitalize on the waves that would be made by him sending a veteran like Dober to the ground. But unlike other beginners in the league, McKinney has actually responded to his recent loss in a mature way. Rather than blaming the loss on anything but himself, he admitted that Dober is a tough opponent and that the only person to blame for the loss is himself. According to him, he has a lot to improve on, which he will no doubt work towards and be ready for the future. By the sound of things, McKinney might have won after all. And last but not least, let's talk about Magomed Ankalaev's latest statements. For those of you who missed it, the Russian fighter recently walked away with his first main event victory a few days back against Thiago Santos. While this might have been a rather timid victory at that, Ankalaev now feels like he deserves a shot at the division title. When speaking on why he deserves such an opportunity, he mentioned that he's on an 8-fight winning streak at the moment and has a tendency to finish guys he comes up against. He also made it incredibly clear that he has absolutely no desire to fight Anthony Smith in the future, who was reportedly offered the fight against Ankalaev before Santos took the bait. In his opinion, Smith refusing to fight him was the nail in the coffin, as now he's ready to take on the champion of the light heavyweight division and will settle for no less than this. Whether he's actually ready, we'll have to wait and see. But the timid defeat of Santos wasn't at all convincing. And there you have it. Everything you need to know about the world of UFC at the moment. What do you think of Chimaev's chances against Adesanya, though? And should the defending champion be banking on Covington joining the division? Feel free to let us know in the comments section down below.